What's going on, guys? It's Ben Runyan again here for AudioSkills.com with another new video about vocal production. Do you ever have recordings that maybe you're in an environment or a studio or a place where you're unfamiliar with the recording equipment and the gain structure and the mic levels or the particular microphone, and you recorded a performance that you really like, but it's maybe not the best quality? Well, I encountered that just a week ago when I was recording some female vocals for my students in a class, and I was working with some equipment that I'm somewhat familiar with, but I honestly didn't do the best job. A lot of the times you'll get these performances with great takes, and you want to save these vocals. So that's number one issue that I want to encounter and go over today. The number two issue is I want to go over reverb in vocals, and I want to go over dimensional placement, where vocals should sit, and how to create an environment for the vocals and with the vocals, using the voice as a texture and being able to soak the track with that texture and make sure that the vocal is part of the track and not simply there with the track, but sounding like it's in another room. So that's number two. So that being said, don't forget to like and subscribe the Audio Skills YouTube and our Facebook page to make sure that you stay tuned for all of our videos as we go along each week with a new video. So today I'm going to be attacking those issues, and I'm going to start with the track today. Let me just play it for you. I'm just going to let it play for a second.
Midnight, moonlight, the wind is blowing strong tonight. Confide, reply, your words fall on broken ears. Your echoes in my mind, your words fall every time. Don't you tell me that you're
Okay, so that goes from there to here.
Tell me that you're gonna change this time. That you're gonna change this time.
So as you can see, a pretty modern track with some vocals that sound pretty damn good and are creating this lush environment. So let's break it down. Here you can see the two vocals themselves. I've got the top vocal, which is the original vocal, and I've got the bottom vocal, which is actually simply her vocal pitched all the way down. So let's solo this, and let's take all the effects off, and we're going to take all the sends off as well to make sure that there's nothing going on there but the original vocal. So let's take a listen here.
Midnight, moonlight, the wind is blowing strong tonight.
So you'll notice a few things. First, you'll notice between the vocals, there's a total gap in sound. I edited these vocals originally in Logic, did a little bit of pitch correction, very light. She didn't need it, but I was going for a particular effect there. She's got a beautiful voice, but the recording itself, you can hear a lot of hum from the microphone from the room. It was running through a hardware compressor, and you can just hear some nasty stuff that really just doesn't need to be there. So the first thing you think of when you think of the female vocals, you think of the rich mids, and you think of the rich tops of the voice. Now, she also has a very sultry type jazz voice. So there are some of those lower frequencies in the chest voice here that do need to be present in the voice. But you hear that hum in the microphone. So the first thing that I attacked is that hum in the microphone. So let's listen again.
Midnight, moonlight.
So that hum is occurring somewhere in the 500 kilohertz, I'm sorry, 500, kilohertz range here. So, or 500 hertz rather.
Midnight,
You can actually see it right there.
moonlight, the wind is blowing strong tonight.
And then I scooped out some here. So let's see why I did that.
Midnight, moonlight,
Just to take a little bit of that mids out.
midnight,
And then I boosted the highs.
midnight.
Now, even though I did that, by its very self, it still sounds a little noisy, the recording itself. But there are ways, depending on the track that you're using, to hide this and to make sure that you don't really sense it when you pull in all the elements in the mix. So the very next thing I did was I added some chorus to the vocal.
Midnight,
to kind of get a wider sound. So it sounds like she's enveloping the entire stereo image. And the very next thing I did was I compressed the vocal.
midnight, moonlight, strong tonight.
Now, if we play that along with the track,
Midnight, moonlight, the wind is blowing strong.
it sounds okay, but it sounds altogether like it's a different part of another song. Not necessarily musically, but you hear those hard gaps in between the songs, and so it's just kind of naked and stands out as this kind of recording that just punches out at you and then kind of goes away, which can be very distracting to the listener and can be a little bit jolting. So let's discuss how I approach that. Now, in addition to having that original recording, I felt like with just the original recording and the track that it still felt naked. So I pitched it down an octave into almost an inhuman and not at all her voice kind of sense.
Midnight, moonlight, the wind is blowing strong tonight. Confide, reply.
So let's listen to those together.
Midnight, moonlight, the wind is blowing strong tonight.
So with that together, you can barely sense that kind of bizarre robotic voice, but it gives a nice weight to the track that possibly a male voice could have octave lower, but I just kind of like using her voice there. So let's discuss the next send here, or rather the next effect in this process here. The next effect in this process was simply sending both the bottom and the top track to a reverb send, and the reverb itself was a long decay here. So let's listen.
Midnight, moonlight.
Now, what's very important about that is this is the number one mistake people make. They have a reverb either directly on the vocal or on the send they have the reverb as well, but it's encapsulating all the frequencies of the voice. Generally speaking, with reverb, we're looking to get the essence, the tail, the kind of shimmer of the sound, but not necessarily the body of the reverb, which I also approached in my last video if you go back and look at it on vocal production with my track Wasted. So built into the Ableton reverb here is an EQ. So you can see that we've kind of scooped out the lower frequencies of the reverb and we just have the higher frequencies represented.
Midnight, moonlight.
That approaches those gaps in the vocals that we previously had there and kind of fills in the blank. So now let's listen to it with the track, but we're not done yet. Oops.
Midnight, moonlight, the wind is blowing strong tonight. Confide, reply.
Almost sounding exactly how I want it. Now, the very last thing that I did was I sent it to Send C. And on Send C, we have an amalgam of things happening. We have not one, but two ping pong delays. I've lowered out the lows of the delay because I don't want anything from the low end in it. And I've even filtered the top of the delay so that the delay and that the reverb on this are being scooped out so that it's just almost a bandpass. So together with this low cut and this high cut, it's essentially made almost a bandpass type filter on this ping pong delay. And you see I scooped out even a little bit more. And just like I showed you in the last video, I compressed this delay as well to hold on to it. So now let's take a listen to it with the click track.
Midnight, moonlight, the wind is blowing strong tonight. Reply, your words fall on broken ears. Your echoes in my mind. Your words fall every time.
Then to join those vocals together, I EQ'd them as a group. So I have the two vocals coming from, so let's just call it Vox high, Vox low. I group them together, and then I have them glued together with an analog model compressor, a limiter, and yes, even more EQ.
Midnight, moonlight, the wind is blowing strong tonight.
And you can see that I didn't go crazy with my gain reduction. This is a general rule I have, and I talked about it with an upcoming podcast that I did with Scott here for Audio Skills. If you have anything that more than 5 decibels of gain reduction, you're running the risk of overcompressing the vocals. So you can see here,
Midnight, moonlight.
I'm in a nice space there as far as compressing the vocals. So let me take this off.
Confide, reply.
It's not doing a hell of a lot, but it's tightening all those small changes and all those small effects together to get a very tightly controlled vocal. And that's the name of the game here. You want to have your vocals so tightly controlled that anything else going on in the track, which this track has a ton going on, it's going to sit above. So with all of that compression and all of that delay and reverb, but making sure that the reverb is scooped out in the lows and the mids and some in the highs to leave room for that lead vocal, to make sure that the dry signal of the vocal itself is standing out, but the lower mids and high frequencies of that voice is being shimmered with delay and reverb. You're making sure that the dry vocal has space, but that the treated part of the vocal has room around it. So lower frequencies and higher frequencies, reverb and delayed. The mid frequencies scooped out and left there so that the dry vocal itself sits on top, so that you're creating this nice bed of vocals that is really taking over the most of the mix with every other instrument and element to support that. So you'll see, even when it gets into that big build and drop, that the vocals still stick out.
Don't you tell me that you're gonna change this time. That you're gonna change this time.
Now, one thing you may notice if you're an Ableton user or just a DAW user in general and understand automation, you can see that I did an automation change here. When all of this started to get crazy, I took the makeup gain of the compressor right here, and you see I temporarily boosted it so that it could stay above all of everything that's going on there. And then with the limiter, I even automated that for some of these vocal chops later. So you can see, just in summation, the idea is to create an atmosphere with your voice that's independent but a great partner of the dry signal of the vocal. The dry signal of the vocal is what the listener will listen to passively when they don't necessarily listen actively and pick apart every little thing. But that reverb and delay bed is what the listener will feel and what will set it apart from, but also incongruent with the entire track. Creating an atmosphere with a voice is the key to making pro vocals, especially in pop and electronic genres. That's what you want to do. That's where that empty space is filled in with atmosphere instead of jamming in additional instruments and making your mix too full and distracting. Please stay tuned, like and subscribe. We're going to have another video next week on audio skills. I'm going to be attacking more of these concepts with vocal production and compression and EQ. And please make sure to follow up in the comment section with any suggestions that you have so I can attack subjects that you're interested in. So this has been another video for AudioSkills.com. Check me out on benrunyan.com. That's BenRunyan.com. And make sure to stay tuned to Audio Skills on both YouTube and Facebook. It's been a great time for me. I hope you've enjoyed. Check me out. Take care, guys.